Discover the sinister secrets of a cursed beach. 17 haunting disappearances finally revealed. The sun dipped low, splashing blood-red hues against a canvas of twilight, while the waves crashed in a voracious rhythm, whispering secrets that had haunted Hollow Cove for decades. This was not just any beach. It was the cursed beach where 17 souls vanished, leaving behind nothing but whispers of a sinister legend, a surfer-esque ghost seeking vengeance. The air thickened with dread as Sarah, a single mother, watched her daughter, Emily, wave her hands in delight. "Mom, look at this shell." Emily's voice rang with excitement, but Sarah felt a tightening chill creeping up her spine. The locals spoke of dark tides and restless spirits. The surf had always called to Sarah, echoing her childhood. Now, it felt like a predator lurking beneath the surface. The late afternoon sun disappeared behind ominous clouds, coating the world in an eerie shade. Panic began to gnaw at her gut, but she pushed it down, wanting to enjoy these fleeting moments with Emily. Yet, when Sarah turned to admire her daughter's find, her heart plummeted. Emily was gone. Emily? Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. Emily. Silence swallowed her cries as the waves roared louder, echoing the fear swelling in her chest. Each second felt like an eternity, the beach now stretching endlessly, mocking her impending dread. Where could she have gone? Frantically, she searched, her heart racing like a wild drumbeat. The tide tumbled forward like a thrashing beast, each wave a reminder of the town's grim history. 17 disappearances. The haunting tales of those dragged under without a trace ignited in her mind, their faces flashing like a dying spark. Just a prank, she muttered to herself, but dark thoughts gnawed at her. She sprinted toward the sheriff's office, desperation fueling her every step. The sheriff, with his bored expression, sent chills of disbelief racing through her. "Teenagers run off sometimes. I'm sure she'll be back," he said, shrugging her concern aside. He knew more than he let on. This was the same sheriff connected to the very families of the disappeared. Her skin crawled. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue." Determined to uncover what transpired, Sarah pored over dusty old newspapers, each article a stain on Hollow Cove's reputation. They told tales of laughter, vacations, and beneath that picturesque facade, an undercurrent of loss and longing. As she pieced together the fragments, the legend of the ghostly surfer surfaced. The idea that a spirit, angry at the betrayal of the ocean, haunted the water, dragging unsuspecting souls into its depths. But why? Why had it come to Hollow Cove? And what were the connections binding the townsfolk to these vanished souls? Her stomach twisted with dread as the brewing storm outside pulsed like a heartbeat, dark clouds swirling ominously. She saw Emily standing at the shore, but the waves concealed something more sinister beneath their frothy disguise, beckoning her closer. Suddenly, a cold wind swept across the beach, rustling the hair on the back of Sarah's neck. The ocean roared as though alive, a deep, thunderous reminder that time was running out. Was the tide calling to Emily? Or was it a sinister force whispering threats? The horizon darkened further, a dangerous omen that struck icy fear into her heart. Sarah had to dive into the abyss of the town's history and confront the horror that lay beneath the surface. Her daughter's life depended on it. The question loomed, could she uncover the truth before it was too late? Or would she lose Emily to the very curse that haunted these shores? The storm broke without warning. Rain lashed down, turning the sand into a slick surface that gleamed like dark glass. Thunder cracked, echoing through Hollow Cove as Sarah stumbled back to the shore, desperation clawing at her thoughts. "Emily," she yelled again, voice breaking against the ferocious wind. Each crashing wave seemed to mock her. Frantic, she scanned the beach. The tides stirred furiously. What had once seemed like playful waves now appeared to writhe with a violent rage, as if they were angry at her intrusion. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, though each heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out reason. She recalled the tales. Parents warned their children, but those warnings faded with the tide. 17 lives, swallowed whole. Could Emily be next? The thought knotted in her gut. She remembered the old fisherman's words about avoiding the water at night. Sarah had never considered the stories real, mere fabrications to frighten children. But now, those tales twisted into vivid nightmares. A flicker just beyond the foamy surf caught her eye. Could it be her? Emily. She rushed toward the water, desperate and reckless. The waves seemed to rise with her, hungry, reaching for her ankles, pulling her in. She fought it, dug her feet into the sand, but the tide shifted, and she felt its force tugging at her. Mom, help! The voice pierced through the roar of the ocean, sharp and terrified. Sarah's heart seized. Was she imagining it? The world narrowed as she spun in the direction of the sound. The silhouette of a child was barely discernible among the wild, foamy crests. Stay right there. I'm coming. But as fast as she ran, the waves surged like a beast, separating them. With every step closer, the surf clawed at her more violently. Panic bubbled over. If she didn't get to Emily soon, she might disappear just like the others. Mom, behind you! Emily screamed, but Sarah couldn't stop. Just a few more feet, and she could reach her. A sudden chill raced down Sarah's spine as a shadow emerged from the water, rising like a dark specter. It looked like a man, silhouetted against the fury of the ocean, his surfboard glinting ominously. The unmistakable image of the ghostly surfer from the tales flashed through her mind. Her breath hitched. Sarah, a ghastly whisper curled around her, and she felt a pull toward the figure, a compelling darkness that drowned out everything else. Emily. No. She had to focus. Emily was in danger. Summoning every ounce of courage, she lunged forward, the waves crashing against her. But the pull from the specter intensified, dragging her closer despite her desperate thrashing. The ghost's face twisted sorrow mixed with rage. You should leave this place, it murmured, the voice echoing as if resonating from the depths of the ocean. Get away from her. Sarah's voice wavered, a mix of anger and fear. The energy shifted, the ghost reacted, but Emily still cried out from the shore. As the tide dragged her deeper, Sarah felt panic replace her resolve. Some part of her doubted, was this ghost the key to Emily's safety? Or was it a trap, leading her to the same fate as the others? A piercing scream cut through the chaos. Emily's anguished face appeared through the crashing waves, terror etched across her features. Suddenly, the ghostly figure lunged forward, arms outstretched, and everything fell silent. Then the tide surged, as if the ocean had taken a breath. Sarah gasped, her whole world spinning as she reached for Emily, knowing the truth rested within the curse of this beach. But was it too late? With darkness closing in around her, she thought of the legend she'd read. Secrets woven into the very sand beneath them. But now, it was more than just lore, it was a battle for survival. How far would the curse reach, and what price would she have to pay to save her daughter? In that moment, she understood. Hollow Cove held deeper shades of horror than she ever imagined. She had to uncover the truth, but would it set them free or doom them both forever? A rush of cold water enveloped Sarah as the tide reclaimed its hold, pulling her deeper into the relentless whirlpool of emotion and fear. She fought against the current, every ounce of energy pooled into her legs as she kicked frantically toward the shoreline. But Emily's voice was growing fainter, buried under the crashing waves and the demonic lullaby of the sea. Just as she started to lose her footing, something sharp grazed her leg. It felt like a cold, bony hand brushing against her skin, and she recoiled, heart racing. Glancing down, she saw a pale, ghostly face just beneath the water's surface, eyes wide in eternal despair, mouth agape as if trying to scream but unable to break the silent curse. Sarah gasped, her body trembling. No, not you. She couldn't look away. The horror of those lost souls haunted her now, drowned in memories of what they once were. Among the drowned, Sarah spotted a flash of blonde. It was the same hue as Emily's hair. Had they been girls like her daughter? Sarah felt sheer anguish claw at her insides. With renewed focus, she tore her gaze away and surged forward, the water getting thicker and heavier like 1,000 hands pulling her under. The specter loomed behind her. Sarah, it crooned again, the voice strangled and echoing in her mind. They're all waiting for you now. She screamed into the storm, her feet nearly giving way. She had to get to Emily. Had to. The sheer force of the waves sent her tumbling. Just out of reach, she saw her daughter's silhouette, thrashing against the tide, reaching out with pleading hands. Mom, help. Each cry was like a dagger to Sarah's heart. Desperation blossomed within her. The picture of Emily, her sweet grin, the sound of her laughter spurred Sarah's determination. With one last effort, she flung herself toward the shore. The specter's whispers wrapped around her, begging her to listen, to linger. But no, let her go, Sarah screamed, as she clawed her way closer to Emily. For a moment, the tide seemed to relent just enough for Sarah to stagger toward her daughter. The wind howled louder, weaving through ghosts of the past that roamed the cove, their eyes glistening with longing and despair. With every breath, she tasted the pain of their absence, but she pushed it down. She had to. Finally, she reached Emily, grasping her wrist and hauling her back from the brink. Relief surged through her, but it was short-lived. As they stumbled onto the solid ground, a sudden wave rolled in, swallowing the shoreline where they had just stood. "Emily, we have to go?" Sarah shouted, but the look in her daughter's eyes made her freeze. Emily's gaze was fixed on the surf, transfixed, as tragedy unfolded in eerie silence. The dark shadow was back, looming closer, eyes glinting like glass. "Mom, the nice man says he'll keep me safe," Emily whispered, voice trailing off, eyes wide in childlike fascination. "No, he is not nice. He is a ghost, Emily," Sarah cried, but it was too late. A grin spread across the specter's face, captivating, knowing. With a force unlike anything Sarah had felt, the waves rolled in with a vengeance, crashing toward them. She felt the grip on Emily slip as if the tide was wrenching them apart. "Come back," Sarah screamed, scrambling for her, but panic surged through her limbs. "Come," Sarah the specter called, his grin widening. "Join us." The beach, once a lively playground, now felt like a shallow grave, and she couldn't shake the dread that washed over her. Heart pounding, Sarah balanced on the edge of snap decisions. Dive into the water and confront the darkness, or flee to safety, but at what cost? As the tide reached higher, shadows danced around them. Turning to Emily, she realized she couldn't leave her daughter behind. Not now, not ever. Taking a deep breath, she plunged her hand into the waves, determined to break the curse, and the ocean trembled as if it anticipated her answer. But as she grasped at the darkness, the tide pulled harder than ever, threatening to drown them both. Would she find out the truth beneath the waves, or would she become just another whisper in Hollow Cove's tragic story? A roar of thunder issued from the sky, and the world around them began to unravel, slipping into chaos as the waves crashed down like dark fury. What would she discover next, and how much would she have to sacrifice to save Emily? The water surged like a living creature, curling and biting at Sarah's limbs as she fought against the encroaching darkness. Fear twisted in her gut, a tight coil that squeezed with each frantic heartbeat. She couldn't afford to let go, to lose Emily to whatever horror lurked beneath the waves. "Emily," she shouted, her voice barely cutting through the howling wind. The child remained spellbound, body swaying gently, as if in rhythm with the waves. The pale specter seemed to shimmer like a mirage, a twisted illusion reflecting Emily's innocence. "Come to me, little one," the figure beckoned, a low hum weaving through its words, sweet and sickening. "You're meant for more than this. Come." Sarah lunged forward, adrenaline fueling her strength. She wasn't just a mother. She was a shield against the darkness. "Emily, listen to me. That man is not your friend." She gripped her daughter's shoulders, turning Emily's gaze back to her. But Emily's eyes were glazed, vacant, as if the tide had stolen her spirit along with the whispers. "But he says I can play forever." Play? Horrified, Sarah felt the weight of dread settle over her like a suffocating blanket. "This is not a game. He is trying to take you." The specter tilted its head, narrowing its glassy eyes. The air grew colder, a sudden chill that seemed to sap Sarah's strength. "You don't understand, Sarah. There is nothing left for you here. You can join them, you can be free." With a surge of desperation, Sarah pushed her daughter behind her, body translating resolve into an armor against the darkness. "Not without my child," she asserted, voice shaking but fierce. The waves crashed overhead with a furious roar, tumbling debris and remnants of lost dreams ashore. They clawed at Sarah's feet, pulling her backward as the specter's power intensified. The fog thickened, wrapping around her mind, clouding her thoughts. Doubt slipped in, whispering in her ears, blending with the mournful cries of the drowned that echoed around. "Join us," came the chorus, voices of the lost rising like a chilling melody. Shadows swayed with the rise and fall of the tide, tripping and swirling dangerously. Struggling against the mental grip, Sarah shook her head so hard it could have cracked her skull. "You're wrong. I want to join you. I refuse." And then, a sudden surge of strength coursed through her, igniting a fire she thought extinguished. She grabbed Emily's hand and pulled her close. "We can't stay here. We have to run." The moment hung suspended, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if the storm paused if only to listen. The specter's grin faltered, a flicker of uncertainty dancing in its eyes. But the streak of hope was short-lived. A dark wave rose, higher and angrier, crashing down like a hammer, obliterating their moment of clarity. The last vestige of safety washed away. And with the overwhelming surge came a penetrating scream, a multitude of voices crying in unison. "Don't let them take you. Fight! Fight!" Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the cold fingers of despair tightening around her wrists, pulling her closer to the depths. Panic surged. "Run!" she screamed as she turned away from the hypnotic power of the specter, dragging Emily with her, lungs filled with the bitter taste of salt and fear. She stumbled forward, the ground slick beneath her feet, unsure of where they would go or how far they could outrun what lurked in the waves. But as they ran, a terrifying realization settled inside her like a stone. The truth was far more horrific than she could ever imagine. There was a history to Hollow Cove, a shadowy legacy of those who had come before, drawn to the surf, never to return. The tide pulled back just far enough for Sarah to catch a glimpse of something unnatural, a submerged vessel, twisted and bruised, a vessel of souls. It lurked just beneath the surface, waiting for another to claim. Behind them, the specter roared, a sound that rumbled like thunder, shaking the very ground they stood on. "You can't escape the call, Sarah." They were caught in a net strung by grief and despair, each wave a reminder of lives taken. As they struggled away from the raging tide, Sarah felt the pull intensify, a haunting promise lurking in every crashing wave. Could they truly escape the curse of Hollow Cove? Or would they too join the legions of the lost, eternally bound to the depths of the sea? As she ran, heart pounding, a part of her already feared the answer. The ground beneath Sarah's feet shifted alarmingly, slick with mud and sea foam, as she and Emily sprinted along the treacherous shore. Every step felt like a fight against gravity, as if the earth itself was conspiring to pull them back. The air was thick with a briny scent that clawed at her throat, making her cough, and the cold wind lashed her face like a whip. "Keep running," she urged Emily, her voice urgent but edged with fear. The girl refused to let go of her small hand, gripping it so tightly that Sarah could feel the child's knuckles turn white. But Sarah was aware that they were not just racing against the waves. The specter, a towering nightmare of insatiable hunger, pursued them not just physically but mentally, reaching into the deepest corners of Sarah's mind. It whispered promises of peace and belonging, of a joy that transcended this life. The words echoed louder than the crashing of waves, almost drowning her, almost seducing her into believing. "Mommy, I'm tired." Emily's voice broke through the turmoil. "I can't run anymore." The desperation in her daughter's tone struck Sarah with a jolt. She turned to face her, kneeling slightly to meet Emily's gaze. "You have to be brave for me, sweetie. Just a little further, and we'll be safe." But as those words left her lips, Sarah's confidence wavered. Were they even safe anywhere? Just then, a bitter cold washed over her, a wave more sinister than those they had fled. It wrapped around her, seeping into her bones, sapping her will to fight. Behind them, the specter loomed closer, surfacing out of the frothing waves, arms stretched wide in expectation. It called out with a dreadful allure. "Come home." Sarah returned to the depths. She dragged Emily with renewed urgency, heart racing. They would never return to that cursed water. But a glance back sent a tremor of terror through her. The shadowy figure shimmered with a grotesque beauty, changing form, sometimes appearing like a long-lost friend or family member, conjuring memories long buried, twisting them into something unrecognizable. "Mommy, look." Emily tugged at Sarah's arm, pointing toward a dark shape emerging from the surf. A figure, cloaked in what seemed to be dripping clothes, approached. It looked human form or flesh, now twisted in unnatural ways. Sarah wanted to scream, but only managed a silent gasp as the figure lifted its head. Then a voice as familiar as her own broke through the chaos. "Sarah, help me." It was her sister, Mary. A frayed memory of laughter and warmth. "Mary!" Sarah cried, stunned. Unseen chains shackled her heart. "What, how?" "Come to me, sister." "I'm here." But Mary's face remained gaunt, hollow, a smile stretched too wide across lips cracked and bleeding. "Don't look," Emily wailed, grabbing Sarah's hand tighter. "It's not her, Mommy. It's a trick." The icy truth hit like a blow. Emily was right. Realizations crushed around her like jagged rocks. Lost souls lured loved ones, each wanting to bring another to the depths. It had happened before, snatching mothers and children, brothers and sisters in insatiable cycle. "We have to keep moving," Sarah shouted, forcing herself to turn away from the beckoning shadow. As they ran, Sarah could feel the pressure mounting around them. Waves crashed harder, the wind howled louder, and harrowing cries soared around their heads, a cacophony of despair attempting to drown any flicker of hope. Was it too late? Would they be claimed, just like the others? Suddenly, the sky darkened, as if the sun had forfeited its shine. With one last desperate lunge, Sarah spotted a fissure in the cliffs ahead, a narrow passage barely illuminated by the encroaching storm clouds. "There! We can hide," she yelled, pushing Emily toward the opening. But just as they reached it, laughter cold and mocking boomed from the waves. "It's too late to hide. The tide will always find you." The specter bore down, rage crashing like the surf behind them, a promise of a fate worse than death. Would they find safety in the shadows, or would the dark tide claim them at last? As they squeezed through the jagged opening in the cliff, Sarah could barely breathe. The narrow passage echoed with a damp, slimy sound, as if the very rock was exhaling fear and despair. She pulled Emily close, their bodies pressed against the cold stone. The laughter from the waves faded, but the air felt monster-thick, pulsing with a heavy silence that stung her ears. "Are we safe?" Emily asked, trembling. "For now," Sarah whispered, though doubt wormed through her like a poison. The darkness enveloped them, smothering any remnants of light. Shadows danced along the walls, and with them, Sarah imagined the specter lurking just out of view, waiting for a flicker of weakness. How long could they stay hidden? Minutes felt like hours, suffocating and drawn out. "Mommy, I'm scared." Emily's small hand squeezed tighter. "Me too, baby. But we're strong. We'll find our way." She tried to sound brave, but her heart thudded louder than the waves crashing outside. Suddenly, a soft sloshing broke through the silence. Sarah froze. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Something slithered along the ground, a shadow darker than the surrounding darkness. Her pulse quickened. "Mommy?" Emily's voice trembled, wide eyes searching the inky blackness. "Stay close," Sarah commanded, panic kicking her heartbeat into a frantic rhythm. The flicking shape grew larger, revealing itself as a shadowed figure hunched over. It climbed toward them, dripping with brine and echoing with the horrid laughter they had just escaped. Its face remained hidden behind a veil of dark hair, but an impossible familiarity chilled Sarah to the core. Sarah, it croaked with a voice she recognized too well. "Stop." She stood protectively in front of Emily, uncertainty mixing with the dread pooling in her stomach. It was another trick. The specter was offering her a false reunion. The familiarity of that voice felt like a blade scraping her mind. "Help me, sister." It reached out, fingers elongated and twisted, grasping toward them. "You can't leave me here. Don't let the tide take me too." "No," Emily cried, burying her face into Sarah's side. "It's not her, Mommy. Let us go. Please, Sarah." The figure's voice cracked, unraveling with desperation. "You can save me. Bring me back." Suddenly, the walls seemed to shift. The narrow passage felt like a trap, closing in around them. "We have to move," Sarah yelled, urging Emily to back away from the apparition. Each step felt like a battle against unseen roots trying to anchor them to this wretched place. But the figure stumbled back, blocking their only way out, a grotesque smile spreading across its face. "You can't escape, Sarah. I'm all you have left. We are tied to this storm." Forever the ground shook beneath their feet, and a low rumble came from the depths of the cliffs. It pulsed like a heartbeat deep, threatening. Water surged forward, rising rapidly, creeping closer to swallow them whole. "Mommy! The water!" Emily screeched. "Run!" Sarah commanded, heart racing. The figure lunged, arms reaching out as if to drag them back into the darkness. Just as they broke free, Emily twisted away, pulling Sarah's hand. The echoing laughter followed them, rising with the waves. The rough water clawed at their heels, crashing against the rock and washing away any shred of hope. Outside, a flicker of light pierced the storm. A path glimmered through the chaos. It seemed to lead to the surface, but Sarah had played this game too long. What would lie ahead? Safety, or yet another deception? With a final, defiant scream, Sarah charged toward the light, carrying Emily along. But the shadows of the past loomed large. As they sprinted forward, she couldn't shake the feeling that something awaited them, ready to drag them back. Was this the end, or merely the beginning of a deeper horror? The light flickered and pulsed like a dying star as they rushed toward it, a beacon in the swirling chaos of the storm. Sarah's heart pounded, the blood rushing in her ears, drowning out Emily's frantic breaths. Each step felt like a gamble with fate, the creeping tide biting hungrily at their heels. "Faster, Mommy!" Emily screamed, tugging Sarah forward. Just as they reached the threshold of light, darkness seeped back in as if the storm had hands, pulling them into an endless void. Sarah stumbled, nearly losing her footing. The ground beneath them quaked again, and she felt the stone walls close tighter, like being squeezed in a vice. "Hold my hand, Emily." In that tangled moment, the glow ahead dimmed, revealing an exit, an arched entryway covered in slick moss and grime. The laughter returned, faint but sinister, weaving through the air, teasing their senses. Not safe, it whispered, like a child's voice twisted into something dark. They burst through the opening, stumbling into a vast chamber filled with grotesque rock formations. Here, the shadows seemed alive, writhing and morphing into shapes that twisted and turned, echoing with the memory of their fears. "I can't breathe," Emily gasped, pressing her face against Sarah's leg. Panic ignited inside Sarah. This wasn't just a cave. It felt like a nest of horrors, a trap woven from despair. "Look!" Sarah pointed into the depths of the chamber. What appeared to be an altar sat at the far end, bathed in an unnatural glow. A collection of smooth, gleaming stones rested on it, pulsating, whispering. Chilling symbols crawled across their surfaces, swirling and writhing, as if caught in the throes of agony. "Mommy, what are those?" Emily trembled, her voice small. "Stay back," Sarah commanded, taking a cautious step forward. The light seemed to reach for her, alluring and dreadful. She caught sight of what lay beneath the glow, shadows cast by figures that seemed to move independently, lingering just within her line of sight. Then she heard it, a soft, melodic sound oscillating through the chamber. It was a lullaby, hauntingly familiar, tugging on the memories of a time before all this terror. Her heart squeezed painfully at the realization. The lullaby was her mother's. "No, it can't be." Sarah's voice quavered, shaking off the temptation. But the song wrapped around her like fog, thick and smoky, memories rushing back, trying to pull her beneath the surface of the nightmarish present. "Mommy, that's a trick. Let us go." Emily's eyes were wide, the innocent awareness bursting through the shadows around them. Before Sarah could respond, the chamber trembled again, more violently, as if disturbed by their presence. The stones began to glow brighter, pulsing in sync with that damned lullaby. Shapes emerged from the shadows, contorting into figures, women with hollow eyes, mouths twisted into sorrowful gapes. They reached out, fingers clawed, whispering promises of peace, safety, reunion. "Emily," Sarah shouted, shaking free of the velvet fog engulfing her mind. "Run." But Emily stood frozen, eyes locked onto one of the figures that seemed to mimic their mother's movements, a heartbreaking reflection of what should have been. "Mommy, it looks just like you." "No," Sarah screamed, wrenching Emily closer and sprinting, each footfall echoing off the damp stone walls. They rushed through a winding passage that twisted further into the cavern, fear lighting their way, but shadows slithered behind, nipping at their heels, experimenting with the air around them. The deeper they went, the more the darkness whispered, growing louder, threatening to drown all hope. Join us, the chorus hummed, a symphony of what-ifs and regrets. Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as their frantic escape turned into a chase. Each flicker of light ahead felt like a trap, each shadow an ambush waiting to ensnare them. Would they ever truly escape this? As they rounded the corner, Sarah spotted another exit. A glimmering light beckoned them, but a chill washed over her. Something behind them screeched a cacophony of voices, wallowing in despair. They could feel it close, pushing against them like a tide made of anguish. "Mommy, hurry!" Emily cried, urgency in her voice piercing through Sarah's fear. With one last surge of adrenaline, they dashed toward the light, but was this their salvation, or would they step straight into the waiting jaws of unending darkness? What lay beyond that threshold? Safety, or an even greater nightmare? The light enveloped them, brilliant yet suffocating, blinding Sarah for a moment. Hope surged in her chest, quickly overshadowed by an icy grip of dread. The glow receded, and a chilling reality settled into the edges of her vision. They stumbled into what felt like a vast, empty hall. The air was thick with silence, interrupted only by their ragged breaths. Sarah looked around, her heart hammering wildly. This new space felt alive, breathing with a hidden sinister energy. "Where are we?" Emily's voice quavered, a few steps behind her. "Not sure," Sarah whispered. The shadows danced against the cold stone walls, flickering in and out, breathing heavily as if they were beneath water. "But we need to keep moving." A sudden rush of wind blew through the chamber, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. It seemed to hold whispers, half-formed words like riddles locked in despair. She shook her head, trying to focus. Together, they moved toward the far end where a jagged opening beckoned, flickering dimly. The shadows followed, rushing like a dark tide, but at the edge of her vision, Sarah spotted something, an outline of a figure barely visible, looming against the wall. Her heart leaped into her throat. "Mommy!" Emily's voice trailed off, filled with an eerie wonder. "Keep moving," Sarah snapped, pulling Emily closer, eyes never leaving the figure. It was dressed in tattered white, hair hanging limply around thin shoulders, obscuring its face. An alluring, twisted melody filled the air. The lullaby, once sweet now tainted with insidious tones, beckoned them forward. The figure stepped closer, appearing to sway with the rhythm of the song, its body flickering like a candle in the wind. Panic surged within Sarah. "Emily, we don't have time for this." But Emily was already drifting towards it, eyes glazed. Sarah lunged forward, grabbing her wrist just as Emily was about to step into the light. The moment their skin touched, the lullaby shattered like glass, replaced by a cacophony of heart-wrenching screams that echoed through the hall. "Mommy, what is happening?" Emily cried, fear replacing the mesmerized look on her face. "It's trying to take you," Sarah shouted, fear igniting like wildfire as she felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. The figure recoiled slightly, the song now a low growl, thrumming with rage. It lunged toward them, shadowy tendrils reaching, drawn by their fear and desperation. Sarah sprinted down the hall, pulling Emily with her, adrenaline fueling their frantic escape. The figure howled, a sound that resonated in their bones, drowning out everything else. Every corner of the hall seemed to close in, the shadows gathering strength, drawing tighter as if hoping to snap them up in their embrace. "This way." She pointed to another archway kindling at the far side of the hall. A skittering sound caught her ear, like claws scraping against stone. She turned. Dark things, creatures born from nightmares, emerged, moving quickly, backlit by all-consuming darkness. Their twisted forms flickered in a dance of terror, eyes glinting with hunger. "Run!" Sarah shouted, her instincts kicking into overdrive. They hurtled through the archway into an adjoining space flooded with dim light, only to be met with even more grotesque images, walls adorned with ancient carvings, depicting scenes of terror, of souls lost and consumed. The truth sank in. This place was a prison for the damned, and they were now part of its cruel design. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shuddered violently, and the ceiling groaned, dust raining down like the remnants of their hopes. "Mommy, I don't want to die," Emily wailed, clutching Sarah's arm tightly, terror painted across her young face. "We won T. We have to keep going." But options dwindled as a wall of darkness surged forward relentlessly, gaping mouths forming, hungry. It threatened to swallow them whole, an endless abyss of despair. They spotted another opening beyond the chaos, but it flickered uncertainly like a mirage in the desert. Hope ignited again, but at what cost? Would they break through to freedom, or find themselves deeper in the terror lurking in the bowels of this ancient nightmare? As they learned the truth of the place, realization washed over Sarah. Those smiles and whispers had drawn others just like them. Would they too be consumed by the shadows and lost to history? The familiar lullaby twisted within her like a taunt, whispering promises of reunion, tantalizing yet enraging. "Mommy!" A final scream shattered the tension. She never identified its source. What awaited them behind that final threshold? Would they find escape, or would they become the phantoms haunting others forever? They darted forward, skirting the edge of the encroaching darkness that twisted like smoke, hungry and relentless. Sarah's heart thundered. Each footfall felt heavy, as if the ground beneath them conspired to pull them back into the depths of despair. "Emily, hold on tight," she cried, squeezing her daughter's hand like a lifeline. The opening loomed closer, pulsating with a dim, ghostly light. With each step, the sinister whispers intensified, wrapping around them like a noose. Shadows clawed at Sarah's heels, each scrape sounding like a warning. "We can't stop. We have to get out," she shouted, panic bubbling in her throat. Emily stumbled, her small feet struggling against the weight of fear. I can't," she gasped, tears streaming down her youthful cheeks. "Just a bit further, please," Sarah urged, her desperation blending with anger at this dark realm that sought to steal her child. But the moment they leapt through the threshold, the light flickered violently. They tumbled into a narrow corridor, walls lined with mirrors. The reflections were warped, grotesque versions of themselves, distorting their reality. Sarah felt bile rise in her throat as she saw a twisted smile emerge on her own reflection, one that she didn't wear. "Mommy, make it stop!" Emily screamed. The echoes seemed to dance along the corridor, taunting them. Sarah pressed her fist to her mouth, forcing herself to breathe, to think. "Look away, Em. Just look away." She dragged her daughter down the hallway, their shadows melded into a single, desperate black shape against the bright mirrors. But behind them, the figure from the hall emerged, its features flickering into being a face twisted in sorrowful grandeur. Its voice echoed, melodic yet dark. "Come back now. We want to follow," Sarah yelled, choking back tears. The mirrors rattled and vibrated, reflecting monstrous images of children, lost souls with eyes filled with despair. She wanted to scream, to break the glass and end the torment, but dread roots her feet to the floor. Emily stumbled again, dragging Sarah back to reality. Suddenly, the air rippled, and the figure shimmered, fading in and out of existence. "You don't understand, they want to let you go," it hissed, phantoms swirling eagerly around the periphery, wisps of sorrow and anguish. They could see faces in the mist, faces that looked eerily familiar. "No." Sarah shook her head violently, her heart racing painfully in her chest. "We will find a way out." Determined, she shoved Emily ahead. Each step seemed to pull them deeper into their horror. The corridor twisted and turned, almost as if it had a mind of its own. Laughter echoed sweet and malicious, rolling like thunder through the hallways. "Join us! Join us!" they chanted, voices melting together in a maddening chorus. Emily clutched her mother's hand. The warmth of her small fingers was almost all that grounded Sarah in this hell. Another shudder rattled the corridor, and a low growl stirred behind them, rising from the depths of darkness. "Run!" Sarah's voice cracked, propelling them forward, into what looked like a large chamber drenched in moonlight. The stench of decay hit them hard, as if they had stepped into a graveyard. And in the center stood a pedestal, an eerie stone object glowing with pulsating energy. It caught her attention, beckoning as though revealing secrets lost to time. "Mommy?" Emily trembled beside her, eyes wide with fear and wonder. "Stay close," Sarah hissed, a horrible realization dawning on her as she approached the pedestal. Etched upon it were names, hundreds of them, swirling like smoke, each representing a soul claimed by darkness. Do you see this? Sarah turned, speaking in urgency. We have to, but before she could say another word, the shadows surged, breaking off and coiling around them like serpents. Leave the child, she belongs to us. No, Sarah shouted, a primal instinct igniting within her. The energy from the pedestal pulsed, igniting a low hum that resonated through the air. Visions flooded her mind, images of those lost, their mouths voicing silent pleas. Among them were people. Sarah recognized friends, family. I won't let you take her. I won't let you take anyone else. She screamed, determination fueling her further. But as the shadows tightened, Emily's voice broke through the chaos, haunting and soft, cloaked in surrender. Mommy, I'm scared. How much longer could she resist? Panic clawed at her heart. Each heartbeat became louder, drowning her thoughts in anxiety, blurred between despair and maternal instinct. Emily, Sarah cried out, throwing her arms around her daughter, knowing with each passing second, time slipped through their fingers like grains of sand. Something had to give. They either confront the heart of darkness or let it consume them whole. With nearly all hope lost, Sarah firmly grasped Emily's hand and faced the encroaching shadows. If this is the end, we'll face it together. The shadows recoiled for a moment. But what force awaited them beyond? A revelation? A final stand? What dark truths lay waiting as they crossed into the abyss? As Sarah gripped Emily's hand, she felt both fear and a fierce resolve intertwining like a tightrope. The shadows writhed, daring them to move forward, to confront the finality of their situation. Behind them, the echoes of lost souls swelled, an encore of despair that spurred Sarah to fight harder. Together, she shouted, voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. They surged toward the pedestal, determination flooding the space where darkness swirled. The moment they reached the stone structure, an explosion of light burst forth, illuminating everything. The names engraved upon it glowed fiercely, glowing brighter and swelling with energy. You cannot escape your fate, roared the shadows, voices intertwining like a monstrous tempest. We are not your prey, Sarah screamed back, pushing Emily behind her. She felt the pull of the cursed beach woven into her very being, but she wouldn't let the tide take her daughter. With one final surge of courage, Sarah placed her hand over the pedestal, feeling warmth pulse through her. Every soul you've taken deserves to be free, she declared, mentally summoning the strength of those lost along these shores. She envisioned a light brighter than any shadow, a purpose fueling her conviction. To her surprise, Emily stepped beside her, the innocence in her eyes ignited by her mother's strength. Let them go. They want to be free, she cried, little arms raised to the sky. The shadows recoiled, howling as if stung, and suddenly the energy from the pedestal surged through them like a tidal wave. Emily's voice rang out with a clarity that cut through the cacophony, calling to the spirits trapped in perpetual torment. One by one, the names engraved on the pedestal glimmered, shadows swelling with remorse, and then disintegrating in a shower of light. Help them, Mommy, Emily urged, tears streaming down her little face. It wasn't just her fight now, it was theirs. Sarah felt her own fears dissipate against the tide of her daughter's unwavering belief. You want to be free. Leave this place, she shouted, lifting her hands toward the pulsating light, the heart of the storm. As if responding to their unified plea, the room filled with radiant energy. Despair exploded like fireworks, each spark releasing a soul. They carried with them whispers of hope, memories swirling like echoes set free. Sarah glimpsed faces she recognized, lost friends, distant relatives, and lives tangled in the fabric of Hollow Cove's tragedy. The darkness howled in agony as the shadows dissolved. The specter that once haunted Sarah fell back, shrieking in desperation, its grasp breaking as the tidal wave of freedom washed over them. But the fight wasn't over yet. In the moment where light and shadow battled, the swirling energies formed a vortex around them. Sarah gripped Emily tighter. They couldn't waver now. Hold on. We're breaking the curse. With a deafening roar, the energy expanded and then collapsed within itself, pulling them towards the shimmering passageway beyond. Sarah strained against the gravitational pull, heart beating wildly. knowing they had reached the brink of salvation or oblivion. They burst through the threshold, cascading into blinding light that swallowed them whole. Sarah felt the icy tendrils of despair fade, replaced by warmth and freedom. It was fleeting yet exhilarating. As their feet struck the sand, Sarah inhaled sharply, lungs filled with salty air. She opened her eyes to find herself standing on the familiar shore of Hollow Cove, sunlight streaming down, washing away the remnants of darkness. "Mom," Emily squealed, laughter bubbling in her voice. The world around them felt vibrant, alive. The ocean sparkled, beckoning without malice. The curse had been shattered, the souls released. With a heavy heart and tears in her eyes, Sarah looked back at the water, knowing the battle had been hard won. They were free. Hollow Cove had finally exorcised its demons. As they walked away from the shore, hand in hand, Sarah felt a weight lift from her chest. The magic of the curse lay behind them, but the resilience of their bond shimmered in the sun. "Let us go home," she whispered, a sense of peace enveloping them. And as they turned away from the beach of echoes, they didn't look back, taking with them the promise of a brighter future. A cycle broken, lives unfettered, and together, they stepped into a world rich with possibility, finally free from the shadows that once threatened to consume them. This was their last chance to truly live. Now, listen up, because this is important. You need to subscribe immediately to never miss the incredible stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, or you'll lose the chance to dive into future adventures. Flood the comments section below with your thoughts and theories about the ending. We want to hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need this thrilling conclusion in their lives. Show your support and let us keep the magic alive.